The Ghost Man Only Rings Twice by Laura Ketchledge. Thunderstorms and power outages go hand in hand when you live in rural Kentucky. My ghost story began with the purchase of an old-fashioned battery-powered landline telephone that was operational when the electricity went out. Between 2003 and 2008, there were a number of occasions where I could swear I heard the phone ringing, only to find a dial tone. For example, stepping outside of my house to feed the horses, then to be drawn back inside, hearing the phone ring. My cordless phone lists all missed calls. Each time, no one had called. The first few times I wrote it off and thought to myself, it must have been something else. But if that were the case, what was it? After a time, the random sound of the phone ringing and other bizarre paranormal occurrences in my home couldn't be written off. It almost felt as if the universe was mocking me somehow, finding humor in the fact that I was literally beginning to question my ears. My mind would start spinning, as if it was running in some vicious cycle, fueled by confusion and angst. I know I heard it ringing. Or did I? If it's not ringing, what is going on? Is there something wrong with my hearing? By 2009, a decision needed to be made how to handle the escalating ghostly activity at my farm. I contacted 4 unrelated paranormal investigation teams that I found on the internet and asked them for help. My reason behind this was simple. No group could be influenced by another team's findings. For the most part, the investigators were college-educated professionals from all walks of life who took a scientific approach to paranormal research. Some teams came in a van wearing matching t-shirts and hats with their logos on them. They all brought special cameras, electric meters, high-tech recording equipment, thermal imagers, and electronic equipment I couldn't even begin to explain. Each team took hours, meticulously setting up equipment and charting results. Some investigations lasted all night, while others extended entire weekends. I had no idea how painstaking and intricate paranormal investigations were, or how dedicated to the truth that these people were committed to. Their integrity impressed me. I was in awe of the process and grateful for their help. I was amazed by some of the evidence the teams collected. The investigators actually managed to record several bone-chilling electronic voice phenomenons, or EVPs, while in the house. On one EVP, the investigator asked, "Are there any children here?" When he played back the tape, you could hear an audible male voice answer, "You have to look." It made me feel hopeful that more defined contact could be made. The teams captured some remarkable film footage as well, with orbs darting by me while I was sitting on my couch or on the bed. After all the evidence was collected, the team's findings were there is currently paranormal activity surrounding me. That all sounds very cool in theory, but living with it is another story. For all my psychic connections and insights, it was still a mystery how things worked on the other side. Every once in a while, there were other bizarre experiences with the phone ringing, only to find there were no calls. Each time, there were unanswered questions about the event. Each time felt perplexing. Sometimes a strange sense of dreading and foreboding swept through me. An eerie sensation would pierce the air, cutting through it like an axe swung wildly in all directions. A small thought in the very corner of my mind bubbled to the surface. You're not alone. One day in 2010, running out of batteries for my camera, I took the batteries out of my antiquated phone and unplugged it from the jack. Without another thought, I set the phone down on the dresser in the guest bedroom and forgot about it. Another few months passed. My friend Shannon came to stay with me while I was recovering from an operation. In the middle of the night, I heard her cry out to me, "Laura, answer the phone." Picking up the cordless phone next to my bed in my sleep-induced haze, I quickly realized it was dead. In the background, a phone was still ringing. My friend was sleepy, but I was wide awake now with all of my senses electrified. So far, Shannon didn't have a clue that something supernatural might be taking place. I got up and rushed to the guest bedroom, nearly trampling my friend in the process. Approaching the doorway, it was hard to stifle my loud cry of exhilaration. Before me was a soft, sparkly white mist hovering above the unplugged telephone, almost caressing it. All I wanted to do was touch it, become a part of it, like my decision had been made long ago to connect with this ghost. My excitement morphed into calmness as I moved forward and snatched up the phone. It felt like a soothing, cool, inviting blanket wrapping around my head and shoulders when I picked up the receiver and placed it against my cool cheek. The phone continued to ring 2 more times as I silently listened and waited. Then a faint crackling noise filled my ear as the grip of the mist intensified. The sound of the phone was my reality now. Nothing else seemed to matter. The entire scene before me moved in slow motion, as if I had stepped into a parallel dimension. Seeing my friend standing in the hallway through the mist as she frantically flailed her arms made me feel sad for her. Finally, the mist lessened, receded, and then completely disappeared as the phone went silent. I gently put it down and tried to collect my thoughts, but no sooner had the phone been placed on the dresser than the television in the living room turned on and off without anyone touching it, making me jump. Anyone physical, that is, not anyone living. Within minutes, my friend had gone from a comfortable sleep on the couch in the living room to witnessing a ghostly event. The shock on her face from the frenzy of paranormal activity made me wish she hadn't been there to see it. At this point, I had to come clean and tell the truth about my haunted house and my paranormal past if I wanted to keep my friendship with Shannon. After a long conversation, still she insisted that we get rid of the phone. Together we scooped up the phone, wrapped it in a thick blue towel, and headed out my back door and safely stored the phone in a plastic orange container in the barn. Later, as we were sitting on the couch talking, the front door motion detector went off, making us both jump. After that, sleep was out of the question, and to my disappointment, Shannon left my house at dawn, vowing to never return. For a time, my life seemed to return to normal. Several weeks later, however, curiosity got the better of me, and I brought the phone back into my house. Making the decision to use an inexpensive camcorder to record the phone in question seemed the scientific approach. It was still unplugged on my dresser without batteries collecting dust. When I stepped out of the house for an hour to run errands or mow the lawn, I placed the camcorder next to the phone. Upon my return, the first thing I did was check to see if the camcorder had caught any evidence. Much to my dismay, the recording showed no evidence of anything unusual. No mist, no ringing phone, nothing. Not one to give up the quest to capture proof, the experiment continued on for several months. Then, it happened. I recorded the unplugged telephone ringing again. In 2012, a producer for the paranormal reality television show My Ghost Story Caught on Camera contacted me. A show was created based on my story and titled The Ghost Man Always Rings Twice, and was episode 69 of season 6. My ghost story about my haunted phone was shared with the world when it aired in August of 2013. Time passed, and I sold the farm, leaving Kentucky and moving to Florida, taking the haunted phone with me. Placing the phone in storage up in the attic in my new home seemed like the right idea. In 2014, a year after the show aired, I went back to Kentucky and spoke with the man who bought my old farm. Asking him if there were any paranormal activity since he moved in took all of my courage. I felt relieved when he told me nothing unusual had taken place, and his wife and kids loved the farm. Later, curiosity overtook me again, leading to another investigation, like the last time, recording the disconnected phone while it sat on my dresser in my Florida bedroom without batteries. Nothing happened. No phone ringing. Nothing unusual. Strangely, it felt a bit disappointing, as if some sort of magical experience were fading now, and a little bit of magic had slipped away forever. Yet at the same time, there was a relief that nothing happened, that I had somehow worked my way back from the twilight zone that I had slipped into when living in Kentucky, and normalcy had returned once more. Months passed. Then one day, while showering, the phone rang. Frustrated, dripping wet, rushing toward the sound of the ringing telephone, it wasn't long before I found myself reliving the events in Kentucky. My cordless phone hadn't rung because the call list read, "No calls." I felt like screaming because this time the camcorder was turned off. For several weeks following the event, the original experiment resumed. Whenever I left the house or walked the dog, I left the camcorder running. Finally, in April of 2015, to my astonishment, the unplugged phone was filmed, ringing once again. The paranormal events in my Kentucky horse farm were intermittent, dispersed between eerie experiences and periods of normalcy. Why were the events happening to me again? Why did there seem to be something following me from Kentucky to Florida? Was somebody, someone, or something trying to communicate with me? Is the activity really connected to the phone? Or is it connected to me? At one point in my life, I had a near-death experience. Did a door open up after that experience and make me more open to spirit communication? So many questions with no definitive answers. One can only guess. I've attempted to channel such experiences into a creative cross between diorama art and postmodern style art. In The Ghost Man Only Rings Twice.